only me. So how did you get on with your Wheel of Life exercise yesterday? Was it enlightening? Have you identified your 3 priority segments that perhaps need a little bit of extra work and attention next year? It can be a bit of a surprise doing that exercise. I know I didn't think that my physical environment segment would be the lowest one. It wasn't when I did my Wheel of Life review 3 months ago in September. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. But if I consciously work on that segment in 2018, what I discovered yesterday is that it will actually improve other segments of my Wheel of Life too. So it's definitely worth me putting in the time and the effort to improve that physical environment segment of my Wheel of Life. So hopefully you've identified your 3 priority segments and identified 3 specific goals, things that you can do to improve each of those segments. If you feel a bit as though every segment needs work on, pick 3 to start with. Okay, I'm sure that they could all benefit for some time and attention. I suspect that nobody has 10 out of 10 for every segment, but nonetheless, just pick the first 3 that we can notch up 1 mark on those scales. Now, I want you to remember what I've mentioned in each of the videos is that goals are different to New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are vague, non-specific, and we may only have the first part of the plan. The classic New Year's resolution is people who say they want to get fit, and then they go and join the gym. And then not a lot happens because they go to the gym, they don't see results quickly, fast enough. So they continue the gym membership for a while, telling themselves, well, I will go. It's just because it's cold outside, or I don't feel like it today. Diet starts tomorrow type scenario. Or maybe because the gym has got a minimum membership length, and then eventually they give up. So the plan to get fit didn't really go beyond joining a gym. Whereas goals are very specific, measurable, and we have a plan about how we're going to achieve them. Now, we may not yet have specific plans for how we're going to achieve the goals we identified yesterday, but don't worry, that will come. I will cover that. But we have at least got the first step of saying, I know what my goals are because they are specific. They are measurable. Just like with me for my physical environment, I will have decorated my lounge by Easter this year. That is a very specific goal. That is measurable. It will be obvious whether or not I have actually decorated my lounge by Easter next year. So now we've identified what our priority goals are to improve our priority segments of our Wheel of Life. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Couldn't all be good, could it? We know that there is actually a limit to what we can achieve, because there are 2 numbers we need to be aware of. 9 to 12%. What am I talking about? This is the number of people who will actually succeed at achieving their New Year's resolutions next year. Why 2 numbers? Well, 9% is the number of Americans that succeed at achieving their New Year's resolutions. That's according to some research by an organisation called Static Brain. And 12% is the success rate of New Year's resolutions in the UK. And that was work that was done by an organisation called Bupa, the private healthcare organisation, back in 2015. The 9% for the USA, that research was done 1st of January last year, so that's very new. It might be that the UK is nudging towards the 9 or reducing down to the 9. So if only 9% of people are going to succeed with their New Year's resolutions, in America next year, and if only 12% of people are realistically going to succeed at achieving their New Year's resolutions in the UK, that means that the failure rate is an incredible 91% for the USA and 88% for the UK. That's not really very inspiring, is it? I look at that failure rate and the success rate and I think, what's the point in starting? You know, especially given that most of us will have set a New Year's resolution or had a dream of what we would like to do for a particular year, and then found ourselves in this 91 or 88% bracket of people who fail. So given that we've had experiences before where we have probably failed at achieving our goals, I know a lot of people who are trying to clear their clutter. If you've still got your clutter and you've had your clutter for several years, then you're probably quite familiar with this failure rate. Then what's the point of really starting? Well, the priorities that we identified yesterday are just priorities at the moment. Okay, we need to take them to the next level. We need to turn them into goals which are specific and measurable. We need to get a plan together of how we're going to actually achieve them. The 88 to 91% of us who will fail with our to turn our priorities into specific measurable goals with a plan will fail. So the 91 to 88, they fail because they don't turn those dreams, those priorities, those New Year's resolutions into goals, into specific goals. How do I know these numbers and how do I know that this is what's going on? There's research that's been done on the issue of how many people succeed at achieving their New Year's resolutions. It is such a common challenge that there are people dedicated to researching this around the world. So like I mentioned, the company called Static Brain did their research on the 1st of January this year, and they're the ones who found that only 9% of Americans succeed at achieving their New Year's resolutions over the course of a year. And then in November 2015, Bupa, the private healthcare provider, they did similar research in the UK and found that the number was 12% for the number of Brits who actually succeed. So let's think about this in relation to our own lives. I want you to think about your greatest challenge to date. What has been your greatest challenge in life so far? Think about your segments on your wheel of life. So it might be something to do with, it might be personal, it might be professional, it might be financial, it might be to do with your health, it might be to do with your friends and family, it might be to do with your most significant relationship, it might be to do with your environment. Which segment of your wheel of life have you experienced your greatest challenge so far in your life? So it might be that the recession was a particular struggle or challenge for you. I know it was for me. My husband and I are both self-employed. That was a huge challenge. It might be ill health. It might be that you or a loved one have had a serious illness and that was your greatest challenge. It might be losing a loved one or a significant other. Whatever it is, I want you to think, what is your greatest challenge to date been? There may be more than one, but I want you to think about the biggest, the greatest challenge that you've had to deal with. Got it? Good. Did it seem like you'd never get through that challenge? That period in your life? Did you wonder, when is this going to end? I don't know how much more of this I can take. Did it test and stretch you in ways that you never imagined possible? that you never imagined that you could cope with. I'm guessing that the greatest challenge that you're thinking of and you're relating this to was something that you had no choice but to get through. That's what life challenges often are. They're things we just have to get on and deal with. When you look back on it now, do you look back and think, how did I get through that? Where did I find the strength, the energy, the emotional capacity to deal with all that? Maybe you're not quite through that greatest challenge yet. Maybe you're still in the middle of it, in which case it probably needs your time, your attention, your energy, your focus. The biggest challenges are the ones that give us the greatest opportunity to grow, learn, and adapt in life. We may not choose to be in those situations, but they are the greatest opportunity for us to grow and learn and adapt in life. I know it's a cliche, but if life was just easy, it would be boring. What would be the point of life if we didn't have challenges? Yes, some of the challenges we would not choose to have, but looking back, they have contributed to who we are today. Sometimes we have no choice in life but to keep going. Sometimes we may reach the point of thinking, I don't know if I can keep going. What is the point of keeping going? And we have to keep working through our greatest challenges just to get to the other side. But because those greatest challenges that we face can be so financially, mentally, physically, emotionally challenging, we probably don't want to have to experience them again. We're not going to choose to put ourselves through that again. We've had that experience. It was probably a negative experience. Why would we put ourselves in that position again? By choice. So it's hardly surprising that when we get a choice about dealing with a personal, professional, financial, health, relationship or family challenge, we may choose to avoid it. We may allow the procrastination to kick in. We may choose to be a bit hopeless and helpless, not accept help, not do what needs to be done, because you know what? Been there, done it. Probably not. But because we've been there and done a huge challenge, and because it was so emotionally, mentally, physically, financially exhausting, we don't want to go there again. We don't want to go to a similar place. Our experiences tell us, avoid that if you can, because of the effect it has on you. Even though it actually enabled us to grow and learn and adapt in life. And, you know, to say to ourselves, we got through it. It's amazing what we can deal with and cope with when our backs are up against the wall. I know with my weight challenge that I have been clearing, I've been on my weight loss journey for the last 2 years. I avoided that for 42 years. It was my 42nd birthday, when I just reached the point of going, you know what, I've procrastinated at this. It's such a huge challenge. I've tried to deal with my weight challenge before, and it is mentally, physically, emotionally, financially exhausting. And I don't want to go there. So I had avoided it because I had had negative experiences of that challenge in the past in my life. But then I just reached that point. It was like a light bulb clicked. I did my wheel of life in that September, and I just went, you know what, I can't keep ignoring this empty segment. My health is pretty much empty because I am doing this to myself. And actually the emotional, the physical, the mental, the financial impact of me being this size has now tipped over the edge. That is now worse than the mental, the physical, the emotional, the financial energy and resources that I'm going to need to deal with it. So the downside definitely outweighed the downsides to dealing with it. And that's why I started to deal with it. So I completely understand that we want to avoid putting ourselves through those challenges when we've been through similar challenges in the past. I am so glad that I did face up to that great challenge though. So, like I say, if we don't have to deal with some of the challenges in life then that we've perhaps had to deal with or tried to deal with in the past, then it's hardly surprising that we avoid dealing with them in the present. For many of us who have a clutter challenge, this is exactly why we've avoided dealing with our clutter challenge. We know there's a personal, professional, financial, health, relationship or family challenges that may actually be in the clutter, not just in terms of dealing with it. And we simply don't want to face them. Plus, we know that when we're going through our clutter, it's going to take time and effort, practically, emotionally, financially. We're going to have to focus and deal with some of the pain, the upset, the emotion that is in and tied up with the stuff in our clutter. We know deep down that maybe this is going to shift our relationships with our friends and family. So why choose to deal with our clutter if it actually risks that status quo? May not be really happy, but at least I'm used to this. Change can be really scary. That's why sometimes people avoid turning a dream or turning what they say is a priority into a goal. A dream, a priority, a New Year's resolution is never going to come true unless we turn it into a goal. Something that is specific, measurable, and that we have a plan of how to deal with it. What's more, like I say, when we think about the difference between a dream, a goal, and New Year's resolution, we need to turn it into a goal. Do we see perhaps where we've been going a bit wrong in the past? Do we understand now why most of us fall into that 91 to 88% bracket of people who fail at succeeding? We can actually see what happens when we set ourselves New Year's resolutions in a chart. The experts who did the research to work out the numbers did some number crunching, and there's a chart which is really, really useful. So this is a chart developed by the two scientists that looked into the success rates, and they're called Norcross and Gangrali. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong every time. So, and this is the same for the UK and for America. It's really interesting that we both have, if you like, the same graph. So across the bottom is time, and across the top is the percentage success rate. So 100% is at the top. And there are some trigger points on this graph. Which colour shall I go with? Let's stick with blue. So, 1 week is the first trigger point. Now, after 1 week, of the 100% of people who set themselves a New Year's resolution, or said, this is my priority for the year, this is what I'm going to do, after 1 week, a huge number of them had already given up. I can completely relate to this. Then we go a little bit further. So 1 month. So 1 month at the end of January, that's continued to go down. Oh dear. By the time we get to Easter, so roughly 3 months. So roughly 3 months in. Ooh, didn't quite do my line far enough across. So by Easter, it's plateauing out a bit. People aren't doing too badly. It's as if the thought of, right, by Easter. Okay, I may not have done that great in the first week, but by Easter. So it kind of gives them another short-term goal to work towards. So we then get to 6 months. Oh dear, the summer is coming. I appreciate not everywhere is summer necessary, but the summer is coming. We want to be outdoors, we want to be doing other things. So actually it continues to go downhill. But then it's after the 6 months, we see a massive decline. 12 months. So this is where we really see it over the summer. Oh dear. So that by the time we get here, this is where we've got the 9 to 12%. Only 9 to 12% of people who started the year with their New Year's resolutions finish the year succeeding and sticking with their New Year's resolutions. Oh, not the greatest, but you get the gist of it. So we get quite a rapid decline in the first month. Then it steadies off a bit till the summer. Summer comes. Uh-oh. And ultimately, if you're doing okay, if you're still on the success part by the time schools go back in September, then you've got a pretty good chance of still maintaining your priority, your goal, your New Year's resolution by the time Christmas comes round again. Okay, so like I say, this is the same graph. It looks the same for both the UK and for the USA. They may start and finish with different numbers, but the shape is the same. So if only these people succeed, it means that all of this bit, the bit above the line, is the failure. So that's the failure, and this is the success. Again, depressing, I know. Makes us think, well, what's the point? Not only have I got these experiences of huge challenges that I perhaps didn't choose to take on and I survived, and actually achieving my goals, my New Year's resolutions, I don't have to do that. I don't have to run the risk of becoming, part of the huge failure part on the graph. Well, what's interesting is that these two scientists who have done all this work, Norcross and Gangarelli, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, have found that those people who fail have got 3 things in common. So the people who fail, so there are 3 factors to failure. The first one is that those people who fail have very unclear or vague goals. Vague goals. So in my example, my physical environment segment of my Wheel of Life, a vague goal would be, well, I want to improve my physical environment. I want to decorate. Pretty vague. Well, where do I want to decorate? How do I want to decorate? When will I decorate by? Very vague goals. So in terms of your goals and priorities from your Wheel of Life yesterday, have you got a vague goal? Is it specific enough? Have you broken down that goal perhaps into by Easter? Because we know that Easter is a trigger here. What are we going to have achieved with that goal by Easter? What are we going to have achieved by the end of January with that priority, that goal? What about 6 months? If we set ourselves some goals, we've got more chance of kind of sticking to them and hitting that mark. The second factor of failure that Norcross and Gangrelli found was that people who fail to track their progress. Fail to track progress. We do a lot of this with our clutter clearing. And I know people struggle with that because we get specific, we talk numbers. How much clutter has come off your conveyor belt? How much has come on? People don't like seeing their progress or indeed seeing their failure. When I have clients who look at the numbers and see that actually they've got more coming into their home than they have coming out with their clutter clearing sessions, that can be, really hard to take. But if we fail to track our progress, then how are we going to know if we're achieving our goals? So, for example, if by the 3 months I'm saying I'm going to decorate my lounge, okay. So by the 1 month mark, what do I need to have done by the 1 month mark? Well, I probably need to have planned, design, and bought the materials. And then I can track it. So I've broken it down into manageable bite-sized chunks. I was a project manager in my previous life, so this is where I actually enjoy doing the planning and the tracking of the progress. So I can actually say, okay, have I done the planning? Yeah, great, let's tick that off. Have I designed how I want my lounge to be? Yeah, done that. Have I bought the materials? Yeah, great. Lovely. So I've got between month 1 and month 3 to actually do the decorating. I would break it down more than that. But tracking progress is all about having little bite-sized goals to go tick, tick, done, tick. And then if we don't manage to meet those things, those actions, we can see where our progress is and maybe what needs to change. Maybe we need to put a little bit more time in for doing it. If we haven't got any more time, then maybe we need to adjust our goal. Maybe we won't achieve our goal by the end of the year, but as long as we are on track. I have this with my weight loss journey. I do track my progress. I weigh myself every week. I weigh myself twice a week, on a Tuesday and a Saturday. Saturday, just so that I know whether I've got to be extra careful at the weekend. And I do have a chart. I'm very sad, but I have a chart on a spreadsheet which has got my weight loss from when I started. And I can track it and I can see whether or not I am doing okay. Have I really gone back as far as I thought I had? Has the fact that I perhaps put on a pound or 2 over Christmas, does that cause a huge problem? Well, no, not in the grand scheme of things, because I'm still heading in the right direction. And the third factor that Norcross and Gangrelli found in relation to why people fail to keep their New Year's resolutions is a lack of self-control. Lack of self-control and motivation. Sound familiar? It's hard to have self-control, especially when we're trying to do things on our own. And I know from my own experience of having friends and family trying to help me, trying to motivate me, trying to keep me on track, that actually it doesn't help. They care about you, they love you, they don't want to upset you. So for example, if I'd had a bad week and if I put on weight when I used to do a diet club, my friends and my family would turn around and go, well, it's all right, it's only a couple of pounds. But if I don't get back on track, if I fail to track my progress, then I am, the next week, it may only be a couple of pounds this week, but if it's a couple of pounds next week as well, that's £4 over 2 weeks. And not only have I got to lose those £4 I've put on, but I then need to lose more in order to get back to where I need to be, to get back on track to achieve my goal. But like I say, friends and family very often, they want to support us, they want to be kind, they know that it's a particular challenge, and they know that can be difficult. So they don't tend to do, if you like, the more realistic type of support. But if we're left to ourselves, then the self-control can be really a challenge, maintaining that and keeping that motivation going. Any of these three things sound familiar? Do these three things perhaps help explain why in the past you've perhaps been in that 88 to 91% of people who are in the failure zone of the graph? Can you relate to these three reasons for the failure? Knowing all of this may have you feeling rather helpless and hopeless about achieving those priorities and goals that you identified yesterday with your wheel of life. I'm not trying to make you feel all doom and gloom and what's the point. I know that it's a low number, 9 to 12% will actually succeed. But please don't give up hope, not just yet. The reason why this may feel like a huge, enormous task to do what you want and need to do to improve your wheel of life over the next 12 months. That's because we haven't yet turned our priorities into goals. Okay, we know what we want to do, but we need to start turning them into goals. How do we do that? Well, there are some secrets that this 9 to 12% have and know. You just don't know what those secrets are. There are 10 secrets that these 9 to 12% know and are using when they are working on their New Year's resolutions, on their goals. And tomorrow I'm going to share with you those 10 secrets. Okay? We're going to turn those New Year's resolutions and dreams and priorities, we're going to turn them into goals by applying 10 secrets. I'll share those with you tomorrow. I hope this has been useful. I hope as well that you now realise you are perfectly normal. There are reasons why you've failed in the past at achieving things in your life that perhaps you've wanted to achieve. Don't give up hope. Tomorrow I will share the 10 secrets with you and we will get ourselves on track so that 2018 can be a really successful year. All right, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.